anybody is just going to be the savior and the best for a certain sect of people. I think black people, just like anybody else, you choose a side. And black people have just chosen to be more Democrat because they felt like they had more support than they did from the Republicans. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we feel like the Democrats are going to save black people. I don't look at it like that.
I think a lot of people think that.
I don't look at it like that. But I don't think the Democrats are going to be the savior of black people, and they're going to end all racism, and they're going to put us in positions to where now we're so equal. But I don't necessarily feel like if a representative of the Republican Party is a Trump, that I'm going to lean toward and feel like their ideals are going to benefit me as a black person. So why would I vote for a Republican if I had that choice?
I mean, I understand that, but the issue that I have is that the Democrats, in my personal opinion, are more dangerous than the Republicans. The Republicans are overtly dangerous.
Yes.
But the Democrats are covertly dangerous, which is more dangerous than being overt. See, Donald Trump, we actually benefit from him because he makes the racists be racist.
Visible.
You feel me? And so now we can see him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But although he is an idiot, he's a fool, we all know that. But he brings out people's true colors. The Democrats are so smart in how they, have an undertone of racism, how they cover it up. And they use code words to communicate with each other. And see, the thing that I've been finding out about white supremacy is that they are so smart and organized in how they go about destroying black people. Because on one hand, you got some being racist in the open. And then you got some being racist on the cool. Mm-hmm. And then you got some that won't hire you to their businesses. And they make excuses for that. And then you got some that will plant drugs on you. They have a whole system set up. And even though they pretend like they beefing with each other on camera, in real life, they all got the same goal. And that's number one, do not empower black people. And number two, we will maintain our power by any means necessary. And we have seen them carry out that by any means necessary several times.
Well, if you're going to look at it like that, Jay, if you're going to say that
I don't think either one is
that. If you're going to look at it like that, then you would say that neither party is really for black people because they're all white. They're all going to be of the same mind, and they all want to be able to have black people, minorities, whoever under them, because they're all white at the end of the day. But I can't sit here and say that I believe that Democrats are going to be racist just because they're Democrats.
I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is the Democratic Party is racist. See, we gotta get out of the individual racism.
What makes them the party racist? What have they done to make us,
The Democratic Party has given us.
Not that I'm just trying to be.
No, I'm with you. The Democratic Party has given us integration, which some may say helped us, but I think they strategically used that to benefit them and not us. Then they gave us the civil rights, which I feel like that once they created, they had intended on these civil rights more so benefiting others than it did us, which is why they had the whole language of, you can't discriminate against someone for their age, their race, their sexual orientation, and all this. This wasn't about sexual orientation. You feel me? Right. So why is that even in the bill? I think they did that on purpose. And then, who gave us the 94 crime bill? Who gave us mandatory minimum sentences? Bill Clinton.
Yeah, I understand that.
Joe Biden. These Democratic men, under the guise of the Democratic Party, created policies to destroy us. And let's just say, for example, that the Democratic Party didn't, by themselves, bring us crack cocaine. Let's just say that. If we was to say that, then it's even worse because now y'all are working with each other, proving that y'all are working with each other. Because if we was to ask the Democratic Party, did y'all bring us crack? They're going to say no. So if y'all didn't give us crack, but you made you made laws to sentence us because of the crack, then you're working with those that brought us the crack. So now I have to ask myself, how can I then trust any of y'all if y'all are working with the enemy? You know what I'm saying? Why do we even, and I'm not talking about you, but why do we even have this conversation? What about the Democratic Party is in any way showing themselves to be worthy of our vote? Why can Joe Biden feel comfortable enough to tell us if we don't vote, then we're not black? Why do they have that level of comfort with us?
I think at the bottom line, it's lesser of two evils, to really be honest. It's the lesser of two evils. That's basically what it is. But black people can't say, well, because we don't have a viable person to vote for, we're just not going to vote.
I'm not saying that.
I understand you're not saying that. But even though we recognize that the Democratic Party has had some policies that they implemented to hurt us over, in the long run, the big picture is the government is not going to be broken up, Democrat, Republican, and we're going to just hurt one side and help one side as a government, as an umbrella. It's all one.
Right.
They're one.
Right.
Right. They had, just like Obama, when he was in office, he may have had policies and he may have had plans and he may have had an agenda. He may have thought he was going to go in and had these ideas of what he wanted to do. Overall, it's an umbrella. He can't go and effect change over here without making it, impact over here. He has to give and take. That's just the way it is. But I don't think that the way I rationalize it is, I'm not going to look at the Democratic Party or the Republican Party and say, I have to choose which one is, going to affect me with a specific policy. I have to look at it as an overall. I have to look at it as an overall.
We have to vote in our interest. And I want to say I heard you saying, didn't you say that, and I could be wrong. Matter of fact, I ain't gonna bring that up. But what I will say is this: black people vote in a block. Most black people pretty much vote the exact same way. You feel me? Mm-hmm. We're not really too split on how we vote. We usually all vote Democrat for the most part. Mm-hmm. We got 47 million or 43 million black people in America. Mm-hmm. And we vote in a block. White folks don't do that. White folks split and vote Democrat and Republican. We don't do that. So if we was to just stop even worrying about them, find us a representative, put him on an independent candidate, put him as an independent candidate, and all black people voted for him, for example, there would be one man with at least 43 million votes. And with that being said, I can almost guarantee that he would win unless white folks all come together and go out of their way to make sure he don't, and they all vote, which they don't. But
that would still be the same thing as us voting in a block. We still voting for one person.
And there's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually better for us to vote in a block, so we know that whoever we vote for, is gonna benefit all of us. You feel, not just half of us. You know what I'm saying? So, but the problem, even if we did that, white folks would have to either outright murder him, or they'd have to come up with some kind of reason why he can't be president or something. Because we both know that votes don't even pick the president. We all know that. I voted for Hillary Clinton. That was the first time I ever voted in my life. I voted for Hillary. She got 3 million more votes than Trump and lost. What are we voting for? If the person that get the most votes can look, who's picking the president? You know what I'm saying? So I think we got to get out of the whole national voting. If you want to do local voting, cool, do your thing. But I feel like it's more beneficial for black people to stop trying to be accepted in the system of America and just create your own. We got to get back to what Malcolm X was talking about. And the issue with that is that a lot of black people, especially the older ones, I think are more so wrapped up in the whole civil rights thing than the younger ones who are like, let's just burn everything down. And because of that, I think that it's going to be hard to get those that are already set on, being an American and, we're all equal, it's going to be hard to get them to get on our side. So I don't really think that we should even be worried about them no more. I think that let them be Americans.
It's kind of hard. I hear you saying this. It's kind of hard for me to wrap my brain around not wanting to be treated as an American.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to accept that
we never actually got what we always wanted.
Right. It's hard for me to say I don't want to be treated as a regular American. I'm receive just the same type of treatment as anybody else that's considered an American. I don't necessarily want to be pulled to the side and say I don't want to be treated as an American. I just want to be a black person.
But the thing is, we wouldn't necessarily have to do that if we was organized. Look, they got a Koreatown, they got a Chinatown, they got a little Mexico. Why don't they have a black Africatown? You feel me? We don't have that.
There are black businesses and black communities and black,
where?
I mean, I'm saying people do try to establish their own little, restaurants and stuff and try to have their own little stuff. But we, for some reason, just don't connect with each other the way other races do.
And why you think that is?
I wish I knew. I just don't understand.
I think it goes back to the Willie Lynch letter. I was reading this book the other day by this woman named this black woman. Her name Angel Rich, and she wrote a book called History of the Black Dollar. And in the book, she put, I don't know if it's the whole letter, but it's an excerpt from the Willie Lynch letter. And in the letter, it talks about how Willie Lynch had a plan to control black people for what I want to say is 500 years, or maybe it was 300, I can't remember. But from what I was reading, it was talking about giving black people a new set of identities, so that they can identify more with European culture than with themselves, i.e., Democrat, Republican, rich, poor, middle class, lower class, Sigma, Phi, Alpha, Beta. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. All these different things, Crip and Blood. I'm not saying they created those things, but what I'm saying is, for somehow, white people have been able to manipulate our individual tribes, quote unquote, and made us identify more with that tribe than with each other. It's as if we want to be Kappas more than we want to be black. It's as if we want to be Democrats more than we want to be black. You feel me? And anytime I come at a Democrat and tell them any of the, not even all of this, but just any of the information that I put just in this video, there is a disconnect. You feel me? A lot of those of us that really want to be Americans don't really get into the whole separation conversation. You feel me? They feel like that's not right. But my response to that would be, what other option do we have? We have tried literally everything except separation. And when we was separated, we was doing better.
Yeah, but
economically.
I was gonna say, yeah, but for whatever reason, socially, we are not of the same mind as African Americans.
What you mean?
We don't all think the same. Not everybody wants to be able to.
A lot of black people are comfortable just being governed, and they just want to be comfortable. We just want to be at peace. We just want to chill.
I use myself for an example. My personality, I stick to my own. I stick to myself. Mm-hmm. I don't ripple the water. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that has to do with me being an Aquarius or what it is, but I don't necessarily feel the need to be able to have to separate myself and say that I'm a black person and I'm not American. You know what I'm saying? Some people have the conversation. They don't want to be identified as African Americans because they feel like that's not what they are. I don't have that argument. It may be totally against what you believe. I get that. But I see, when we talked about the white cops marching with the black people in the street, I'm of that mind. I want us to be unified. I don't want us to have to keep fighting against, people just because they are of the white race. You know what I'm saying? There are a majority of the white race that's against black people. We've seen that through our whole history. you know,
Right.
and we know that we have to do something in order to make it known that this has to stop. But I don't want to have to continue and say that we have to fight and be separated from them just because they're of the white race. Does it make sense?
The thing is, that is a nice and optimistic
That's what
idea.
It is. That's what it is. I'm very optimistic about, maybe a little clueless, maybe a little,
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I
just don't feel like we have to. Why can't we all work with the white people that are trying to help us? Why do we all have to separate ourselves and say, because we have been disenfranchised and we have been marginalized, that we have to separate ourselves and we have to create our own independent of us working together? Why do we have to do that?
The thing is, Mama, we not organized. So it's not like we can just start a movement and we can associate with all races. We aren't even our own individual race. We would rather be Americans than be black. It's not a problem being American. No. But follow what I'm saying. Okay. It's not a problem being American as long as we maintain our original identity. When Asians come over here, they don't strip themselves of their Asianness. Right, you feel me? Right. But for some reason, it applies to all the other ones too. But for some reason, and we see that especially with Mexicans. Mm-hmm. Mexicans will come over here and do not care who has a problem with them being Mexican because they know who they are. Right. But for some reason, we haven't found a way to identify as both. And I just gotta keep it 100, Mama. Okay. The whole African American thing, I feel like is a facade that doesn't really exist, if that makes sense. Because number one, from what I heard, the word African American was made in 1988 by Jesse Jackson. Okay. And the only reason I like the word African American and the word Negro is because it is specific to us. They can't lump anybody else in that. So in that sense, it's okay. And that's why I don't have no problem with us being African Americans. But my thing is, we have to stop, separate, and regroup. We're not even organized enough to be trying to link up with other people. We got to get ourselves together.
Ideally, that would be wonderful for us to separate. But we are not all of the same mind. As black people, we don't all have that same desire.
Not all of us, but what I'm saying, all of us don't have to have that same mind. When for example, Europeans, they only need a small percentage of them to be engineers for the whole country to benefit. A very small percent to be doctors for everybody to benefit. We don't need all of us to speak truth to power. A small percentage of us get out here and do it, and we can benefit everybody. So if I can get out here and galvanize some of these young men and older men that are like-minded with me, hey, bro, let's get something done. You know what I'm saying? Let's figure something out. But I don't see how we're going to do that through voting. I don't see how we're ever going to do that. White folks, just thinking logically, nobody's going to willingly give up their power.
No. I agree. I'm going to agree with you to a certain extent. Us voting, let's say, for the next big major general election for president, how would that really make a big dent in how the criminal justice system is handled? How would that make a big dent in how the economy moves forward for black people? How would any of that really make a dent? I can see why people would say there's no point in me voting as a black person when that's not going to really change on the surface. But if you, in this instance, say, I'm not going to exercise my right to vote, it permeates. It continues through the next election, and the next election, and the next election. It grows to where you are complacent, and then when you don't have any black voices represented, it does make a big difference.
But see, that's not necessarily voting's fault. You know what I'm saying? Because whether we vote or not, we supposed to have men and women up there that represent us.
Well, but the problem is voting, though. That's not just
no. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Angela Rye's of the world. I'm talking about the Charlemagne. The Charlemagne is getting real political. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about those of us, not elected officials, because most of them are sellouts.
Right.
I'm not talking about. I'm talking about.
I don't write that point, but go.
I'm talking about those of us that get out here and we they do have connections to some of these politicians, whether black or white, that can get something done. But most of us aren't really politically educated anyway. So if we can get those people to go out here who are politically educated and get some things done, then we can get somewhere. But the problem is, a lot of those people that we have that are politically educated, that are going about trying to bring some change and update us on what they're doing, is a very, very slow process. Right. You feel me? And at the end of the day, most of those, change is slow for us. When they want something changed, they do it immediately. You feel me? So when it comes to us, it's gonna take a while. And so it would speed up the process if we voted and had people in place that was on our side. But the problem is, we've done that. We got a Congressional Black Caucus. We got an NAACP. What are y'all doing? What?
That goes to say the people that we put or that we have in those places, the people that we expect to do something, those people you're saying who have a platform, even regular people like me or you, we have to be the voices that push them and basically make them do something. So it's the grassroots. It's the even in the community.
Why should we have to convince other black people to help black people?
Look, if you want something to happen, Jay, just like you want to be able to get on the ground and put your boots down there and start going and meeting people and trying to convince people like this is the change we need, it's going to take regular people to go and push those voices and push them forward. It takes back as low as the school boards. It takes the city councils. It takes, even in all the community organizers. It takes the little places, the lowly positioned people to be able to make change to go up. But all we're looking at is the big stuff.
Right.
It really does take you down here, organizing way down here in order to impact change.
But I mean, it does make sense why we would be expecting stuff from the federal level, because the federal government is the reason why we're in this situation. Most of the stuff that's happened to us is because of the federal government. Individual white people don't really harm us too much. Right. You feel me? It's the government and the system that right. And so I think personally, that's why we expect for the government to be fixing some of the problems that we have, because they're because of y'all. But then they tell us, well, you gotta do it locally. The responsibility is on the federal government. The responsibility is not on the local judges. Yes, we have issues locally, but systemically, the federal government is who we should be calling the task. Yeah. They are the ones that owe us. Yeah. They are the ones that did this to us. So they are who we have an issue with. But the problem is, a lot of the white people misinterpret our frustration as though we hate all white people. Exactly. And that's not the case. It's not our fault that the government is all white. You feel me? But the thing is, we have to get out of the individual. If a white man on the street, like what happened to Ahmaud Arbery, when that happens, that in itself is a problem, but that can be dealt with. Right. The real issue is the DA that let him get off. Exactly. And nobody heard about it till 2.5 months later. Right. The systemic issue. That's what I'm saying. How did she get that job? Who hired her? Right. You feel me? Those are the issues that we need to really be focused on. And with the Gayle King thing, I remember that. And everybody was mad at Gayle. Who was the white man that put the video out? Right. Why are we not talking about that? Why are we mad at Gayle? Yeah, she might have been wrong. Who put the video out? Right. That's what I want to know. And so,
was it an agenda?
Right.
To make her look bad?
Right. Was there an agenda? You know what I'm saying? Was this a plan to make us beef against each other? Because we know that they have a history of pitting black men against black women. Yeah. Verified history. This ain't even. This is facts. You know what I'm saying? And it did almost work. And we still see little segments of that now. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But as far as the voting is concerned, I'm not gonna tell nobody not to vote. But what I'm saying is, I do not feel like we will ever get justice voting. I feel like if we want to really live a comfortable life that black men and women are supposed to live, if we want the inalienable rights given to us by God for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that the Constitution promised white people, if we want that, we're going to have to separate. They was not going to get that from England and them. So they separated and did that on their own. We can learn from them. And we don't have to murder anybody. We don't have to steal nothing from anybody. We already have the money, the gifts, and the talents. We can do it ourselves. Only thing we haven't done yet is unify.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's why I say we're not of the same mind. In my mind, I hear you when you say we need to separate and we need to, establish some independence. I just feel like if we were more proactive in the everyday things that need to take place in the communities, within our neighborhoods, within our cities, within our, states, if we're more proactive in that, I do think voting would help. Because you're holding the people that you're putting in. If you choose a candidate and you feel like that person has your best interest at heart, that person really is going to do the things that you feel like is going to benefit you and your family and your life ultimately, then you're going to keep your voice in their ear and you're going to keep them accountable. But once we vote, that's it. We don't keep them accountable.
But the problem is, you're right. But the issue is, I just feel like it's unrealistic. You know what I'm saying? I know in a nice, perfect black world.
How realistic is it for us to separate, though, Jay?
That's more realistic than all of us coming together, being politically educated, voting locally, and getting all of the ignorance out, and then changing the world. Separating is way more realistic than that.
You made my idea sound like it was so big.
I'm saying
you gave me like 15 levels. And your idea is just one level and boom.
Okay, you're right. I just don't see the way being voting. We tried that. We had 50, 60 years since we had that opportunity.
Well, Jay, sometimes you gotta try something new. With everything that's happening, there's news. It seems like stuff is getting thrown out the door and people's minds are becoming aware, so maybe it's just a way of starting to speak to people in a different way, maybe it's just going to communicate in a different way. This generation is going to do things that 2020 is ushered in a whole lot of information and a whole lot of upheaval. How do we know what's going to happen with this new breed of students coming up?
We're going to find out.